Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, Past, Present, and Future. Welcome. And here now, Corey Gomez.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, Past, Present, and Future. Today, I am joined by Mr. Barry Pearl. You might know him, well, you probably know him from Grease. I kind of know him more as Johnny Glitter from Avenging Angel, but I want to thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Now, you're joined by, does that mean you've come apart in some way? I don't fully understand.
I used to have hair just like you did in Grease, so maybe we're separated at one point.
Maybe. Maybe. My gosh, you like the Johnny Glitter role, huh? From Avenging Angel.
I love Avenging Angel. I was so excited to get the collector edition Blu-ray. The only thing that was sad is, like, I had told my wife, especially in the case of the first one, because I had seen it, I was like, maybe 12, 13, I'm like, time for a good sleaze movie. And, you know, you see the transvestites and all that, and it's like, well, this is just campy fun now. This isn't the trashy films I remember. You know, it's just,
that's right.
They're funny
that's
now.
Right. That's right. Exactly. And I remember when we made it in '84, our writer / director, Robert Vincent O'Neill, he was going for Damon Runyon. He had that in his mind, you know, Guys and Dolls, those kinds of characters, you know, that just popped. And I think he achieved that. But you're right, it was an odd film, and for its time, I guess kind of sensational, but now, you know, not so much.
I just always loved all the posters where, you know, it's the split and it's like, honored student by day, Hollywood hooker at night. You know, the way it's so ominous. It was good marketing.
Yeah. That was New World. Sandy Howard, New World. And Betsy Russell, who had taken over for the original Angel. Forget her name. Great actress, by the way. And, it was fun to shoot. I remember I really pursued that role. I'd auditioned for it and then actually got in touch with the director. I don't know how we did that, but we had great conversations back and forth, and I really pursued getting that, and it worked out. And I had a great time doing it. I got to shoot a gun. I got to get shot by what's his name? I can't remember the guy.
Rory Calhoun?
But no, to work with Rory was amazing. No, the guy that shot me at the end.
Was that Davis? O.C. Davis?
No.
Or Robert Lyons?
No, and I got to work with Bobby Lyons, too, for a minute. But no, Tim Rice, that's not Tim Rice. He was an Eagles football player that was known for eating light bulbs. He's the one that towards the end tries to shoot me with a shotgun when I'm lying there in the elevator at that wonderful building that gets used in so many different films. It's all wrought iron. You know, that last scene in the film.
Was that Rosovich?
Yeah, Timmy Rosovich. Okay. That's who it was.
He was Teddy
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and I got to do that, and you hear my cat in the background because my wife is about to feed her, and every time we feed her, she just goes crazy. She can't wait to eat. So I get shot in the leg, I think it is, and I think I ad-libbed, medic! Because I actually get shot by myself. I shoot off the revolver that I have, and it ricochets and hits me in the thigh. And then I shoot, and I actually hit Tim Rosovich, and he staggers back and then falls into a door with a glass window, and it was all so exciting. It was great fun to shoot.
New World made a lot of great films. I was sad when they, went away, but I mean, so many of those companies did back then. I was a big New World and Canon and Vestron. I liked all those companies.
Yeah, all those Plan B films, those B movies. Great cult films.
Now, I guess I have to ask first. Let me ask first. How did you get started in the acting business?
I was. My mother, may she rest in peace, had got me. They saw that I had something. My parents were divorced when I was a year old, so it was basically I was brought up by my mother, my three aunts, and my grandmother, and I was the only child, and at that point, the only grandchild. Until my cousin Roxanne came along, who was the daughter of my Aunt Frida, and then three other cousins, son and daughters of my Aunt Mim, they're all gone now. May they all rest in peace. And they saw I had a spark, and my mom enrolled me in a tap dance class, Miriam Mentzer's tap dance studio. And at the end of every year, they do a review, and I would be the center of the review, along with a little girl named Maxine Gilman. And that was, I guess, part of the bug that bit me. And then in the early mid-50s, I guess it was, through that, my mom heard about a community theater called the Lancaster Little Theater. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I did a play or two for the community theater, and then 2 plays for the Franklin and Marshall Green Room Theater. Franklin and Marshall's a college there, a medical college, actually, where Roy Scheider was an alum. And I did a production of Richard III with Roy, and a production of Tall Story. And those were my kind of semi-professional experiences in the theater. And then in 1959, there was a production of Dark at the Top of the Stairs that was being done at the Fulton Opera House, now called the Fulton Theater, one of the oldest theaters in the country. And I was cast in the role of Sonny Flood in that play. And there was a fellow by the name of Charles E. Miller, Chuck Miller, who was an aspiring playwright from New York, who, in order to pay the rent, took a job running lights for that production in Lancaster. And he took a liking to my mother and myself, and he told my mom, one of these days I'm going to get your son on Broadway. And 2 years later, in '61, the summer of '61, Chuck had become friends with the secretary of the man who produced the Broadway show Bye Bye Birdie. And there was a young fellow named Johnny Borden playing the role of Randolph McAfee in Bye Bye Birdie, who was leaving the show to open a new play called Taste of Honey. I beg your pardon, called Milk and Honey, with Molly Pecan, and was leaving that role vacant, and they were looking to replace him. So my friend Chuck, our friend Chuck, told this secretary named Bob Fagan, hey, I got the kid for you. And so got in touch with my mom, got an audition, went into New York by train, and like the following day or so, auditioned for Gower Champion and his wife Marge Champion at the Schubert Theater in New York, where Birdie was playing, and I got the gig. And that began my professional acting career. Started work like the next day, and that was in August, late August 1961. Became a proud union member in September 1st, 1961. Had been a member since, along with the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA. And that started it all. And from there, my mom enrolled me in professional children's school. And after Birdie was done, I did the national tour. I did the last month on Broadway, did the national tour, and then the Vegas company in the summer of '62, after which I joined the pre-Broadway company of Oliver. It was a replacement, but then came in as one of the original Broadway cast in January of '63. So Oliver was my second Broadway show, and was there for the better part of that year. Left the show in the fall to understudy Barry Gordon in the national tour of 1,000 Clowns, after which I doubled for him in the movie starring Jason Robards and Barbara Harris. And then it goes on from there. You know, the rest is, as they say, history. So that's the story.
Well, then you had it hot. I mean, like one of your your second big film, Grease. Did you ever think, Grease, 1978, did you ever think 2020, still a national touring play, still shown on cable probably 5 times a week on various channels? Did you ever think that was going to have that's beyond cult success. That's like mainstream, huge success for all these years.
Never. And anyone that has a crystal ball that lets them know that, give me their number. None of us had a clue that, and nobody ever does. How can you predict that kind of future? And we're so fortunate. We're so blessed to have this in our lives. What a legacy. If I never do another job ever again, to have this legacy has been such a gift from the muse, from God, from the greater force, whoever, whatever. You know, I can shuffle off this mortal coil, knowing that I have left a positive mark. And so it's just such an upward kind of skyrocketing experience, and continues to be. And I'm thankful, grateful.
Now, I'm going to ask you this because you were in it, and people get mad when I say it. Grease, movie theaters show it Sundays for the family. It's on the Freeform former family channel. It's every family thing known to man. Am I wrong in saying the movie is all about pretending you're to be someone you're not so you can have sex?
I think that's interesting. I've never heard it put that way. I think that our raison d'etre, the collective raison d'etre, is to have sex.
Well, yes.
Don't we want to procreate? Isn't that in our DNA? Ultimately, isn't that what drives us all? Ultimately, is to procreate. Mm-hmm. That's why we have this drive. Now, I've gotten into the macro cosm of our very existence to continue the species, the race, but distilling it down to the plateau on which Greece exists. I actually thought that you were going to say, that the message isn't very pure. And it's funny because I just saw an article, just read yesterday, an article that Olivia was quoted in about the fact that Sandy has to go and make all these changes to accommodate the bad boy. But then you have to understand that the bad boy also accommodated her.
So he did it too.
Exactly. So there was a meeting of the minds. It's really all rather innocent. And back in the 50s, those were the mores. We've evolved, certainly. We wouldn't do this today. But the story isn't about today. It's about then. And it's about our evolution. So anybody that slams the movie now, looking at it now, and critiques it based on today's mores, I think it's unfair, actually.
I think my favorite critique, although it makes absolutely no sense, is the guy that wrote the whole dissertation of how she was really in a coma. It was the dumbest thing I ever read, but when you actually read it, as you're reading it, it's like, this makes perfect sense, but then at the end, it's like, this is just stupid. They drove away in a car for a happy ending. Fantasy.
Yeah, Red will never have that in mind. I can guarantee you that our director never had that in mind, and our screenwriter. I to this day don't completely understand it. Why all of a sudden they ride off in the sunset with a flying car? It is so ending. You say that is a fairy tale.
Fairy tale ending. That's what I always got out of it.
Well, that's basically it. I mean, that may be in the minds of Danny and Sandy, but that's how they, go off into the sunset. So you sort of have to give it a break. After all this time, does it really matter? Ultimately, it's kind of a fun, escapist, kind of silly thing to begin with, So I don't pay it much attention, quite honestly.
Did you ever think, and I know this is another question because everybody always says there's always the breakout, but no one can ever guess. Did you think John Travolta would still be going strong in 2020?
I never gave it a thought. At the time, of course, he was the hottest thing since high button shoes, and who knew that his career would be the roller coaster sort of that it has been. Yeah. And it wasn't until, of course, Tarantino resuscitated his career. Look, this is a very fickle business. You get chewed up and spit out. And I just first of all, I'm a huge fan of John's abilities. And not only that, I'm a huge fan of his ethics. We're good friends, and I simply adore the man, but not only because of that, but his talents I've always been a fan. And that he was able to depart from the image to do what Tarantino wanted him to do. There is Tarantino's design, and then there's Travolta's ability to execute that. So you got to give the guy credit. And so I applaud all of that he was able to come back. Now, listen, he's done some clinkers, what, Battlestar Earth, is that the name of the film that he did?
Yeah, that's not on my top 10 list.
No, it was dreadful, and I'll be the first to say that. So let's just put that aside for the second and talk about all the wonderful projects that he's done, successful projects that he's done. But at the time, we didn't even contemplate it. He was a huge star, and we were just ever hopeful that his status certainly would help to would allow this film to have its day. It wasn't a great artistic success at the time. It didn't get the greatest reviews. It was certainly a commercial success, and the foreign distribution was pretty terrific. It wasn't until, the 10th anniversary or some such thing, that it became and still continues to be the iconic, the classic that it is. And that's because the fans just simply adore the simplicity of it, the boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl, universality of it, coupled with the really terrific music. Thank you, Warren Casey and Jim Jacobs, for your book and your lyrics, Louis St. Louis for your compositions, John Farrar for his compositions, the gorgeousness of both Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, where the camera simply adores them, and we're just, it's a kind of a perfect storm of elements coming together to make it the success that it continues to be. And again, we're all ever thankful for that. And you couple that with the heart, the collective heart of the entire cast. Corey, we're still all very close. We're in touch all the time. And it's a great family to be a part of. I'm proud of all of them, every single one of them, from John right through the 20 dancers, the core dancers, through the background artists. Each and every one of us takes such pride, and we're all cognizant of the fact that we're all still a great family. On top of that, you have the family of the stage play, directed by Tom Moore, who, by the way, is in the process of writing a book about the stage version, and all the folks that were brought together, all the stars that grew from that project. Treat Williams, Richard Gere, Richard Cox, Adrienne Barbeau, you name it. We've never seen anything like this. Anything from a stage play to a screenplay having spawned such talent.
How was, if somebody, and you don't hear me say I feel sorry for people very often. How was someone I did feel sorry for, especially the last few years of his life? What was Jeff Conaway like back then?
First of all, Jeff and I were childhood friends. In fact, he was the Zuko in my life. Literally. He was a child actor, as was I, and we traveled in the same circles. And I adored him. The fact that we wound up doing this together was just perfect kismet. A true tragedy. His own worst enemy. Drugs were at the corner. It was the cornerstone of his demise. And weak in that way, weak of character in that way, unfortunately. Major tragedy. Such a talented, bright, loving person to have fallen to that culture. Just a tragedy. What more can I say? I remember talking to him about the fact that his appearances on what was the name of the show, Corey? The reality show.
He was on a few of them. He did the drug rehab, celebrity drug rehab, and I didn't like that. I don't like reality shows, and I'm sorry, and I can't be the only one that thinks this. I believe people's bad behaviors on those shows are encouraged.
Yes, and I agree. I totally agree. And I said to him at one point, I said, Jeff, really, has it come to this? Because he said to me, you have no idea, Barry, how much people love me and how it's gotten me recognition and I've gotten offers. I said, really? From this reality show this has happened to you? This is what you go to, that you're thankful for that because you're now back in the spotlight, and I kind of took him to task for it. Not that it was going to make any difference. It's very hard to intervene. Oh, yeah. Really hard to intervene. I couldn't do it. Drew Pinsky couldn't do it. The doctor. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Yes. Nobody could step in and save this guy from himself. It's much harder. You sit back and you watch a movie or a teleplay or a stage play about this kind of thing, and you see the characters trying to intervene. You say, well, if you could only do this, you just say that, just do that. No, it doesn't work that way in reality. It's hard to convince people that are already convinced. Look, I'm the same way. My wife continued to try to convince me that my bad behavior is what it is and that I should change it. And, she's the brightest of them all, and she's absolutely right. But I don't always listen.
Yeah, none of us
It's a whole other thing. He had to listen, and he didn't. He just simply didn't, and it became the tragedy that became. Unlike somebody like Dennis Stewart, may he rest in peace, who played the Crater Face. Mm-hmm. He passed away. I believe he passed away of AIDS. Now, there's a lifestyle there that he succumbed to, unfortunately, for those reasons. Not an addiction, but a particular lifestyle that caused it. You take Annette Charles, who played Cha-Cha, died of cancer. Are we going to intervene on that? There's that tragedy. And the list goes on. Most of the folks who we've lost, natural causes and such. You have no control over that. That the fates are in charge of that. God is in charge of that. Or whoever you believe is the greater, is the greater source. Mm-hmm. But with Jeffrey, you think just shake him and say, "Stop this." That's not easy to do, and we couldn't do it. And he became a victim of his own craziness, unfortunately.
He was a guest on the Howard Stern show shortly before he passed. He was with his wife, girlfriend. The one that was in the reality shows with him. He was, he was wearing his a leather grease type jacket, a biker coat. I remember he had a switchblade in his pocket, and he was trying to sell a CD he made. And I'll tell you, I quit watching it. I was like, because I know him a lot, I don't know him, but, I grew up watching Taxi, and there's this guy that's so talented, and I was like, I just, I can't watch this anymore. It was one of the few cases where it was like, I'm not going to watch this, and so I quit watching anything with him until I'd read about that he passed away.
All I can say about Vicky Lizzie, his girlfriend, is I can't comment.
I didn't even know her name, if that means anything to you. I just remembered who she was. But on to a more lighthearted subject. Actually, wait, let me ask you this first. Grease 2. Apparently there were a whole bunch of T-Birds that were juniors that we never saw because now they're seniors on motorcycles. What did you think? Now, I told you, I loved Grease 2 because it's a horrible movie. No one's going to say it's a good movie because it's not. It's fun, but it's awful in every sense of the word, but good awful. What did you think of it when they said we're going to make Grease 2 and now they're all going to be bikers and for some reason they're not a tough gang, they're a bunch of idiots? And what was your thoughts of that when you saw it?
All right, so here's the story. About 3 or 4 weeks into principal photography on the first film, Alan Carr, may he rest in peace, came to Jeff and Michael Tucci, who played Sonny, Kelly Ward, who played Putsy, and myself. I don't think Johnny was with us at the time. I think it was just the four, and Jeff, the four of us. It was, and I want to say, I can remember us being outdoors. It might have been during the summer nights shoot, very early on. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks in. But I remember us sitting outside at one of the high schools under a huge canopy that covered like the lunchroom area in the outside portion of the particular high school we were at, saying that the studio is so excited about what they're seeing in the dailies. And for people that don't understand what the dailies are, those are the film clips that we've shot the day before, and they take a look at them to make sure they've got everything that they need so they don't have to reshoot something. And sometimes they do. Saying to us, we're going to make a sequel. And we feel that the sequel is going to be called Summer School, and it's going to be about you guys having failed phys ed, which you recall we set up at the end of the first movie.
Yeah.
At the opening of the carnival sequence, where, the pie throwing contest and that whole business. We have failed phys ed, so we were all going to go to summer school. And that was the original concept. And then Bronte Woodard passed away, and then Johnny and Liv, I think they pulled out of it for one reason or the other. I don't know, because they didn't like the concept. Who knows? Whatever the reason was. And all of a sudden it took on a whole other thing, and that was what you referred to. And I must be honest to say, well, aside from being disappointed, that I did not watch this film, Corey, until years later, when MTV had done a Behind the Music documentary thing. There have been many of them done. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be airing on MTV right after a Grease 2 exhibition showing. And that was the first time I ever saw the movie with Michelle Pfeiffer and Max Caulfield. That was the first, and my friend Lorna Luff. I had never seen it before. Didn't see it in the movies. I don't know if he would have been invited to a screening. I don't, or maybe I was out of town. I don't remember. So I looked at this thing and I thought, oh, I understand why it wasn't the success that the original Grease was. And what funny part about it is one of my students, Forrest Green, who was one of my improv students, was one of the T-Birds. My other buddy, Chris McDonald, was one of the T-Birds. My other buddy, Adrian Zmed, doesn't he play a T-Bird or so?
He's the leader.
Gang?
Yeah, he's the head of the gang.
The head of the gang, who, by the way, I directed Adrian playing Teen Angel in a production of the stage version of Grease that I directed, and Kelly Ward, who played Putsy, choreographed for Cabrillo Music Theater out here in California. So again, we're all very tightly bound. So I watched this thing, I thought, but it didn't make any difference at that point in time. It was already, out and done and gone, goodbye. So there's the story. Disappointed that we didn't do what was originally designed and what wound up actually, happening. And look, all power to you. There's a whole cult of people that like that film, and good. I have no problem with that. I'll share the wealth. It's not Grease, but it is what it is, and it recently celebrated its 40th anniversary, I want to say, because I can't remember when it came out after Grease, the original Grease.
Maybe it was not an ungodly amount of time, maybe 7 or 8 years, maybe?
Yeah, maybe,
it wasn't too long afterwards.
Yeah, because I think they had a reunion. And then, for a long time there, Doody Khan, our dear Frenchie, she had a concept for a real Grease sequel, which would have been Grease 3, where she appealed to all of us in the original to put together a portion of what is the Bible, that you go to the studios and say, here's our concept, and here's the story and the backstory, et cetera, et cetera. So all of us contributed to this. Marty and Sonny, that's Dinah Manoff and Michael Tucci, wound up marrying and opening a pizza parlor. And I forget what happens to Putsy and Jan, but they added their thing to it. And then what I added was that I married Paulette, who was Lorna Luff's character in Grease 2, and we had kids. And now we're following the children of the original Greasers, though our kids would have been younger and wouldn't have been part of that group that we follow. So that had to be adjusted in some way. And she had the eye and ear of Sherry Lansing, who at the time was the Mucky Muck at Paramount. And we actually had 3 different writing teams involved, and even Zayden and Marin were involved, and it was going to happen, but then John and Olivia, they didn't write off on it. And I think at one point, one of the teams of writers had John's character, Zuko, having died in a racing accident, and Frenchie and Zuko winding up being together. So it got really crazy. And it just sort of never came to be, unfortunately.
You know, speaking of crazy, you were in a movie that no one listening, except for maybe a handful of people, are going to know. I'm going to tell you, fans, the movie's called Dutch Treat. And I'm going to tell you, the opening act of this movie, you see this poor guy named Jerry. Turns out his buddy has been driving his car around and got him like 250 parking tickets. So he tells him, he's like, just plead guilty, you know, you'll be okay. The poor guy goes to jail. Well, he's in jail. His good friend there sublets his apartment. You know, and then they become, they go on a cruise ship as knife throwers and kill a couple people, go to jail. I mean, this was a Jim Carrey movie before there was a Jim Carrey. And it's Lauren Dreyfus,
David
Landsberg. They made like 3 or 4 films was all.
Yeah.
And they made the funniest films I've ever seen. I have to ask, how much fun did you have working on that set?
I had a great time because I got to be a rocker, and you know, I played the guitar, and I grew up in the '60s, so I'm a child of the '60s, loved the Beatles, and always wanted to be a rock and roller, you know. So in this, I was able to play this crazy rock and roller who had makeup that looked like Kiss. And one of my students at the time, my improv class students, Mark Richardson, I got him involved in the film, and he was a crazy punk rocker to begin with. He actually had his own band called, it was not Marky Mark, but because Mark Wahlberg, I think, had a Marky Mark.
Yeah, he was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Right. Yeah, but Mark Richardson, I forget, it was a kind of death metal group. I can't remember what it was, but I got him involved, and the two of us are the lead singers for this crazy rock group called Dead Meat. And we kind of designed our own makeup, and we shot it at the Palace, I want to say, on the Vine in Hollywood, in Hollywood, just south of Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood and Vine. And so the concert it was crazy. The concert we did, the whole deal was, if I recall correctly, we were this particular act in this contest of some sort, and our heroes also had a rock group, and they somehow wanted to sabotage Dead Meat, the rock group Dead Meat, of which I was a member. Mm-hmm. They needed to sabotage their act, and so what David Landsberg and Lauren Dreyfus did is they helped them out to do that by running helium through a hose that came up our microphone stands, and they turn on the helium and make our voices sound like this, like, you know, you sound when you inhale helium, and that somehow disqualified us from the contest. It's so absurd. And so we got to do that, and we got to play that, and there was a whole a background of extras, background artists that were in the audience, and we got to play to them, and it felt like a real concert. I had a ball doing that film. It was like getting away with comedic murder. We had a great time. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, the film went absolutely nowhere, but it was fun to make, truly fun. And a dear friends, David, may he rest in peace, and Lauren, who hired us to do it. Friends hiring friends. It's a great thing to have happen. So I'm grateful to the two of them.
And all the people listening that are huge fans of Cannon Films, I'm a huge fan of Cannon Films. Cannon didn't make comedies. They made schlock, martial arts, action, and sci-fi films. But Dutch Treat and Detective School Dropouts are 2 comedies that Cannon made, and they're both hysterical. I just watched Detective School Dropouts maybe a few months back with my son, and he loved it. I mean, both of these films are, if you're an adult, you're going to like them. If you're a kid, you're going to like them. I mean, these were 2 funny films that never... They played on Showtime once in a while. Only one of them has a DVD release. Dutch Treat you can watch on YouTube. Other than that, I don't think you can find it anywhere.
I don't think you can. Every once in a while, I get a residual for 36 cents. You know?
Hey, that's all right. I guess it depends how much the stamp costs, but
yeah, right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Were you surprised that their work didn't become move? Because I know they played. I know with a lot of Cannon stuff, they kind of played more overseas, but. Are you surprised they didn't get like a big American film, And
No, not really. Because again, like you say, Cannon is what it is. Like New World, is what it is. Yeah. So no, I never thought it was going to have this major release. Never.
I sure thought they would go on to greater things. They were such a funny team.
They were, but then they had their private problems too. So they ceased to be a team after a while.
They were, they were good. Fans, if you've never seen these movies, you really need to. They're very funny. And you also need to go to Vinegar Syndrome. Not that I work for Vinegar Syndrome. And you got to pick up the Angel box set so we can see Avenging. You see Angel 2, Angel 3. You get to see them all on glorious Blu-ray with special features.
Oh, man. That's right. There were 3 of them, weren't there? There was an Angel, Avenging Angel, and there was like an Angel 3, right?
Yeah, always a different angel.
Yeah, it's funny. That's right. Always a different angel. That's correct. That's funny.
And Angel didn't age. She did, because in the first one she was a high school kid. She went on to be in college, by the time the second one that you were in came. I think she was in med school or something in the second one. I do believe she was a med student, or no, she was law school. She was law school. Law school, because the first one starred Cliff Gorman, may he rest in peace, as the cop. Mm-hmm. And then in the second one, Bobby Lyons took over for him, I want to say. And then by the third one, I think maybe Rory had already passed, I think. But I don't think he was in the third one. I haven't seen the third one. I've only seen the first and second. They're all the same. I can't say it's a great movie, but I can't say it's a bad movie. If you like one, you like them all. They're all very campy by today's standards. They're almost laughable.
Yeah.
Exactly. I believe Julie Newmar was in the first one as one of the prostitutes, I think.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
She was in Streetwalking as a prostitute. She was a prostitute in one film back then.
Okay. I don't remember, but you may be right. Julie Newmar. There's crazy for you.
Yeah, she was. She'll always be Catwoman.
Catwoman, I know. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to verify this here and make sure, because I know she was a prostitute in Streetwalking, so I could be wrong. I am going to look up and see if she was a prostitute in Angel as well. And,
she's fun. She's a really fun guy.
She is not a prostitute. That was Streetwalking. She was not a prostitute in Angel. So.
Yeah, I had the fortunate opportunity of meeting her, I guess the first time at a memorial for our friend Gretchen Weiler, may she rest in peace, and I met her then. And then there was some other situation where she was, I guess it was a signing show or some such thing. But anyhow, just wacky, talented woman.
Yeah, I got to meet her at a signing years ago, and she was sweet to me. Beautiful lady.
Yes.
I won't lie to you, though. Adam West outshined her because he was all West.
I loved Adam West. I had a great opportunity to hang with him for about a weekend. Adam and I had done a parade. We did a parade and an event for the National Football League Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Spent the weekend. Oh yeah, I think it was Adam. But we had done that together, and that was really sweet. Was it there? No, I lied. No, that was Chuck. Chuck Connors. Adam, I had met during the commemoration for the Three Stooges when they put a star on Hollywood Boulevard for the Three Stooges. I was part of that event. That's a long story, but Adam was there because he had done a film with the Stooges back in the day. So, but I got to meet him then. He was a very sweet man. So it was Chuck Connors. Remember the Rifleman?
Rifleman, yes.
Rifleman. We had hung together for a weekend in Canton way back in I want to say that was the early 80s, I want to say. Nice guy.
I remember West was at it was a superhero, a comic book show I had met him at, and he had gotten it because I remember because cell phones were bigger back then; they would flip open.
Yes, right.
There was a father because a lot of parents would take their kids. The kid didn't know who this guy is. Son, this is the real Batman, and all that, and he got a phone call, and right before he was supposed to sign this, you could tell whoever it was really making him mad, and he put his hand up and he looked at the kid and he's like, "Hold on, chum. It's the commissioner. I think the Riddler has escaped. I'm going to talk to him and I'll be right back." And it was, it was like so awesome, and this kid's like, oh, like in awe. And I was like, that was like the nicest, classiest thing to do. Cause I'm sure wherever he went, whoever was calling him, he was mad, but he never sold it to the fan, which was so great.
Yeah. Funny. That's funny.
I like people that do the conventions and they're very into it, you know.
Yeah, I've done them. I've done a bunch of them, and unfortunately now they've been put on hold. In fact, just the other day we got an email from our booker for the Hollywood show, which is a convention it's been put back and put back and put back. Now it's January, but I highly doubt it'll even be in January for that matter, unfortunately.
Tell me a little bit about a movie you did with some of my buddies there. My new buddy, Marshall Teague. My good friend, Kathleen Kinmont. My other new buddy, Vernon Wells. The Silent Tyler Maine. Oh, that's a hell of a good people you worked with on that one.
I just got an email from the writer-director, just as we were speaking, David Risotto. I promised him that I would make a donation to a children's fund, and I just made a donation to Love Shriners. If you've ever seen those commercials, those wonderful commercials with those kids, you know what I'm talking about?
The Shriner ones, the hospital ones?
Yeah, and I promised David that I would make that donation. I did in honor of our friendship. And so, it's called The Silent Natural, and it's about the life of Dummy Hoy, William Dummy Hoy, who was the first deaf baseball player, who was attributed, actually, to the umpires calling balls and strikes with their hands because he couldn't hear, ball and strike. Though there is an argument as to what deaf baseball player really was responsible, we believe it to be Dummy Hoy. So David had done a documentary on this and then did a full-length feature that starred the folks that you mentioned, and Barry Livingston and Sam Jones. And,
Sam's a great guy.
Myself. He brought us to Kentucky. Branscombe Richmond, my pal, produced it. And we had a great time. I didn't get to work with everybody. Bill Billions was the guy that I had my two scenes with. And we had a great time. It's a wonderful story. And I think it's in a limited release right now. Each one thing, it's amazing how anything gets made. Any movie gets made. So you get a producer to make it, and then you have to get a distribution deal from a company. And that's hard to do, where a company will invest money to distribute your film across the country, across the world. They invest, they're hoping that they're going to get their money back. And of course, if you have big stars, and you have festivals like Cannes and the like, where those films get exhibited and buyers come to those festivals and they buy the rights to exhibit the films. It's not it's not a simple process to get a film exhibited or a television series on the air. People don't realize that. It's a struggle. And a small film like this was, with the talent that it had, still, it's still, excuse me, sneeze to the truth, as my grandmother and my mother, may they rest in peace, would say. This is still looking for this film is still looking for a distribution deal. And for instance, I did a film called The Newest Pledge. It was actually a film. It was a student film created by grad students at Chapman University in Fullerton, California. They made this film, and Lionsgate picked it up, and it got distributed. You can buy that on Walmart.
Jason Mewes was in that.
I'm sorry?
Jason Mewes was in that.
I can't picture Jason Mewes.
Great guy.
Big guy, did you say?
No, he's a great guy. Big, tall, long-haired, skinny guy. He was the professor.
Oh, okay, I know who you're talking about.
He does all those movies with Kevin Smith.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Rob Steinhauser and, my pal, oh my gosh, I can't remember names. It's just that he needs the publicity. Oh, that's just so terrible. I can picture him so perfectly. Oh, gosh. Oh, he's going to hate me for not remembering his name. Anyhow, fun, talented folks. And again, they got lucky to get a distribution deal. That's a pretty incredible thing, Yeah,
I mean, you've done a lot of great ones. I guess I always know you as Angel. You'll always be known as, as Grease. Not a bad thing to be known for by any means. I guess my one question I've got to ask, Eddie Deason, who had year or two ago. I remember he had heart surgery. So he was Eugene. He was the nerd in Greece. Well, obviously he wasn't a great nerd because he must have flunked because he was still there in Greece too.
I guess.
You know, I always kind of wonder. It's like the one guy they bring back is Eugene.
Yeah. Well, Doody came back too, for that matter.
Oh yeah, I think Eve, a little bit. That's right.
Yeah, Eve and Sid were there, and I don't know if Doody was there, but a whole bunch of them were there. Yeah, I guess, and he's hanging in. He's hanging in there. We're in touch, and yeah, he had this surgery, and it was a major strain on his body, but he's holding on. He's holding on.
One of my pages, I once posted a picture of him from Zapped wearing a shirt that said "God's gift to women," and somebody that must be his Facebook friend liked it and sent it to him, and he liked it back. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He refers to himself as my little brother, and so we have a terrific relationship. I'm very fond of Eddie. We go back obviously to Greece days, and we've remained in touch. Again, part of that family. We all love each other dearly.
I think that's fantastic that you guys have remained friends all these years. Because nowadays, I mean, you don't hear about loyalty, let alone friendship. It's like, yeah, I did this movie with this guy, and we never talked and all that. And you guys have maintained a friendship, through all this. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
It really is. It's very special in that way. The entire Grease family, even the stage Greasers too, we're in touch. But the film Greasers are very, very tight. We're always texting, emailing, calling. Yeah, very tight, very tight. We adore each other.
I've never talked to John. I am going to talk to Joey Travolta, so I'm working my way through that family here.
you know my connection with Joey, do you not?
I do not.
Oh my goodness. For the last 6 years, this would have been 7 had it not been for the COVID. I have been teaching film arts to the special needs community by way of Joey's Inclusion Film Company. Joey's passion has always been special needs. And though he did have a career, he went to school and I think he actually has a PhD now. He got a degree in special needs and has 5 brick-and-mortar schools, year-round schools that teach special needs film arts. And he shepherds these folks through the school and actually into jobs. In fact, many of them have worked on some of John's films, Poison Rose being one. There was another one recently that they just did. But in any event, every summer for the last 6 years, and again, not including this year, we hit about 6 to 8 cities all across the country, which include like Walnut Creek, Fairfield, California, Livermore, Arkansas, Florida, Pittsburgh, Tenafly, New Jersey. We go into each of these cities for 2 weeks. There are 3 teachers, and we have 3 different classes of about 15 to 19 per class, in which we have them we help them to create 3 7-minute films, short films, and 3 commercials or PSAs, public service announcements, which then get exhibited in a red carpet event the following fall in each of those cities with Klieg lights and limousines and everybody dressing up. It's a beautiful thing. So we've been doing this. He's been doing it for I guess about 17, 18 years. I've been with him for, like I say, for 6 of those years. And it's been such a gift. So Joey and I are very dear friends, along with his wife, Wendy Shawn Travolta, the daughter of the late Dick Shawn. We're a family. And Joey's partner in the business, Dale O'Prandy, and the wonderful editors and film crew that travel with us across the country. So we've been doing that for all this time. Now, recently, and kind of segueing into what Olivia and Johnny and Michael Tucci, Kelly Ward, Brandel Kleiser, our director, Joel Thurm, our casting director. We went down to Florida last year around this time. It was November, and we did a meet and grease. I don't know if you heard about this, where we went to 3 different cities in Florida: West Palm, Jacksonville, and Tampa. And about 150 of the 6,000 people in these amphitheaters purchased a ticket, basically, to meet John, Olivia, and the three T-Birds, have their pictures taken, after which they joined the remaining 6,000 in these huge amphitheaters to see a screening of the Grease sing-along, after which John and Olivia come out on stage, and we all then join them for a question and answer, which would have been an event that would have continued forward all across the world had the pandemic not hit. So, once again, we're all united. We're all inextricably bound. We're all a huge family. That is that story.
Well, it's a beautiful story, and I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to talk with us here today.
It was my pleasure, Corey. Truly my pleasure. Anytime any of us can tell this lovely story, we do so because it does lighten the hearts of all of us and fills the hearts of so many of us as we need such filling during these trying times.
Yes. Yeah, like I said, I can't thank you enough. I hope you can come back one day.
I'm just a click away, my friend.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You have been listening to the Chronicles of Hollywood History. Thank you from Gomez Richmond Productions.